everyone to Fearless Fundraising with Dr. Jonathan Rowe, founder of venture19.org. This is the podcast that turns your flex time into growth time, whether you're commuting, working out, or just out walking the dog. Each episode is packed with practical tools, biblical encouragement, and real-world strategies to help Christian non-profit leaders grow stronger, lead boldly, and fund their God-given mission. Because let's face it, if you want to change the world, you have to know how to pay for it. Here's Jonathan.
Hey everybody, it's Jonathan. This is a big day for the Fearless Fundraising podcast. We have a special guest with us today. You probably recognize the name. Her name is Mary Valloni, and she is a national fundraising coach, consultant, and author of the book Fundraising Freedom. Mary's also the founder of Fully Funded Academy, where she equips Christian leaders with her proven 7-step system to confidently raise support and build strong and lasting donor relationships. Mary has decades of experience raising millions of dollars for ministries and nonprofits. And as you might imagine, she now inspires so many people across the country and around the world to understand fundraising, not as begging for money, of course, but as an invitation into God's work. You can read more about Mary at maryvalloni.com, and you can find her podcast. If you are on whatever platform you are on, you can just look up Fully Funded Podcast, and you will find Mary right there. Mary, welcome today. Thank you so much for being here. And the first thing I want to ask you to do is fill in any gaps there. What did I miss? What else are you up to? What's going on in your world these days?
Yeah, no, I love it. And this is so much fun to have this conversation because you were a guest on my show 5 years ago, which is crazy. So this is so much fun to reconnect and
Time flies.
talk about all the cool things that God's been doing over these many years. But yeah, I've just really had the incredible opportunity to work with people of faith all over the globe and well over 1,000 missionaries and nonprofit leaders who are raising funds and just being able to give them some strategy and some clear direction as to raising funds. But I mean, I worked for the American Cancer Society, Special Olympics, the ALS Association, so some really great organizations. And I often say that I got to learn from $1 billion nonprofit, which was the American Cancer Society. So I love that it works. The content that I share, it works. Small organizations, big ones, individuals, so I love fundraising. It's always been my thing.
That's a funny thing to say, isn't it? That you love fundraising. And actually though, isn't that what we need? We need leaders to have a different view of fundraising, right? Not as a necessary evil, but as something that God has called us to do and is giving us the opportunity to do. And you're not going to be able to fundraise effectively unless you, believe in your work so strongly that you want to invite people to be a part of it. And unless you actually fall in love with it, right? Is that how you see it out there?
Yeah. I've been raising funds for as long as I can remember. So I'm the youngest of 7 and I sold the candy bars in elementary school and raised funds for the cheerleading uniforms and the soccer, trips and all the things. And I always saw raising funds as not like asking somebody to give me something that they didn't want to give. I always looked at it like they get to be a part of my story. They get to be a part of the impact that's being made. And who doesn't want to be a part of that? I mean, I remember like the car dealership in my community. I grew up in North Dakota, and the car dealership sent $50, or the local bank or the grocery store or whatever, and they were just like, "Here's we want you to go on that business marketing trip or whatever," and they were so excited to support the community. And so I just see that when it comes to fundraising, that it's always been a positive, and I've never had that negative, like, oh, they're rejecting you when they say no. I'm like, no, they're just not into it. It's just not their thing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. So one of my first questions I want to get into today is really dealing with that mindset. So with what you see out there, all the different groups that you're working with and the experience that you have, how can we help specifically Christian leaders, I think, really make the shift that fundraising is not about asking for money, but it's really an extension of our ministry and the calling that God has put on our lives, right? It starts with seeing it differently. And I feel like so many groups need that mindset shift. So how do we push them in that direction? What are you seeing out there? What works?
Yeah, I look at really the spiritual gifts that we all have been given. And some people are great teachers or, encouragers or whatever. There's just obviously so many of them,
Yeah.
leaders and all that. And I find that I mean scripture does say that people have the gift of giving.
Mhm.
And so it's almost like you're not allowing somebody to step into their
Mhm.
giftings when you don't give them the opportunity to actually give their money away. And so I know that I have the gift of encouragement, of
Mhm.
exhortation. So
Mhm.
I'm like, it would be like telling me that I can't encourage people. Like, no, no,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
we don't want you to encourage people because that would, like I feel guilty about asking you to encourage people. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. That's like, I live for this. Like, I love that, And so I think as believers, and people of faith, it's really giving everybody the opportunity to step up into their own, like just their own calling and in their own gifts. Just like some people have the ability to be super organized,
Mhm.
like, people who are like very data driven or they like to geek out on numbers and finances and all that stuff. And other people are like, do not make me do a budget. That is so painful. It's like, well,
That's right.
they love that. You don't, so I think that it's like getting away from the idea that we're asking somebody to do something that they don't want to do.
Mhm.
Instead, it's an invitation and you start to just invite people to be a part of the bigger picture. And I think we give a lot of value to money
Mhm.
over all the other gifts when
Yes.
we just need to like let that go. Like money's great. And like I love it when somebody gives a good gift. Hey, I'm a
Right.
fundraiser.
Yep.
But somebody's time is actually, I mean, it's equal, if not more, right? Like, it's like if you give me your time, that amount of time, you could give me one idea that turns into $1 million.
Right.
So I
Yep.
mean, time, resources, money, all the things. It's like we need everybody to bring their part to the table. And so if we
Yeah.
can just let go of like giving money the power, I think that we could do a better job of actually just inviting people to be a part of something and doing whatever God tells them to do.
Yeah, I was reading a study the other day. I don't know if you saw this from Neon One. They put out their 2025 fundraising study. And one of the things that came out of that was they were looking at where people are looking to give money and how their philanthropy plays out. And when I saw the categories,
Yeah.
I was like, this is what the Christian community is doing. These are what Christian nonprofits are doing. And so I began to think to myself, man, when we think about fundraising as a ministry to other people, I just have the firm conviction that right now, a whole bunch of other people are looking for opportunities to connect with great nonprofits,
Yes.
right? They want to be a part of something significant. The study even showed this very clearly. And so when we think about fundraising as inviting people to be a part of something, that's what they're looking to do. When we think about giving people an opportunity to invest specifically their resources, a lot of them are trying to figure out where to invest their resources.
Yep.
And so I love what you said. It's not asking somebody to do something that they don't want to do. They're looking for opportunities to do what they feel like God is calling them to do and leading them to do. And for those folks, a lot of the Christian nonprofits that we're working with, they are the answer, right, to that search for so many people.
Absolutely. I actually have a good friend he works predominantly with philanthropists at Christian philanthropists. And that's the thing. He was talking specifically about a family who had a DAF, a donor advised
Yep.
fund, and they had $1 million in this donor advised fund that had been handed down from their parents. So here these young people had $1 million to give
Yeah.
away. They were like, they can't spend it. It's not like they can go on vacation with this
Right.
money. They have to give it to a charity. And so he was sharing how they connected and he basically solved their problem by giving them a place that it
Exactly.
could actually manage this money well. And then he's, jokingly said, he's like, well, these guys haven't even actually given anything. So he's like, and
Right.
they're wealthy themselves. And so
That's
he's
right.
like, we just got the donation that mom and dad passed down to them. We haven't even gotten a donation directly from them yet, So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. I look at very, very wealthy people, and a lot of times people they just get into their work because they love it, and some jobs
Mhm.
pay better than others, right? So you get somebody like an Elon Musk or like somebody who's has a ridiculous amount of money. He doesn't have the time to
Right.
even think about where to give that money away. There was a
Right.
tweet that he, put out like years and years ago when he didn't even have a fraction of what he has right now. And he was talking about how hard it is to actually give his money away. And
Yep.
I don't think that we make
That's
that
right.
connection that it's
That's
like
right.
the more money, more problems, but more money because like those problems come because you're like, I want to be a good steward
Hmm.
of the money that God has
That's
gifted
right.
me with, but
Hmm.
it's not my money and I still can't just go bury it in the ground.
That's
Like I
right.
have to be wise and I want to look at a place where it can get multiplied and it can actually make an impact. So, anyways, that's why I'm always like, okay, how can we solve people's problems? Because I've never met anyone who's like, I hate spending money.
Right.
I
Right.
hate giving my money away to great causes, you know?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Elon Musk. I was remembering somebody posted on Twitter a random tweet a while ago, and they said Elon Musk could take 0.05% of his net worth and solve the world's hunger problem or something. And he tweeted back, "Hey, I'm willing to do that. Would you be willing to get me a plan?" And it was right. I'm like, okay, so right. He's like,
Right. It's
hey,
like it's
I,
not that he's not
I,
willing or that
I'm
he's like,
I'm open to
I'm
this, but
trying to do these other
yeah,
things. Like,
somebody tell me how to do it. Somebody tell me how we can get this figured out. So,
and this is why you'll find that 60% of all donations that are given away are actually given away by women.
mm,
And it's crazy because you think, okay, well, that's an interesting statistic. But if you go back, if you're like looking at a traditional family and the husband or the wife, whoever it is that's bringing in the income, usually it is the male in the family
yeah,
is bringing the
sure.
income and the female is giving the money away.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like when you have like a Jeff Bezos who's like, okay, he divorces and she gives away
Yeah,
all of his money. Like, you
yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly,
Like that's what
exactly.
it's like. Elon
Right.
doesn't have someone who's just their
Yeah,
full-time job is just give your money away. So
yeah.
anyway,
Oh my
we could
God.
go on a tangent on that one,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
just the
absolutely.
fact that the whole message here is just the fact that it's like I think we're hardwired to
Hmm.
want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves,
Hmm.
and we're hardwired to want to give and to be
Yeah,
generous and to
yeah.
support great causes.
Yeah. I just love what you said. We're not asking somebody to do something that they don't want to do. They're looking for opportunities and they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so when we understand that side of it and we focus more on the giver and the donor and how God is leading them and what they're trying to accomplish, right? We can put the right opportunities in front of them. I always say to ministry leaders out here, you've got to be good listeners. We'll go into a major donor meeting with our 10-point talk, outlined in our heads and our one sheet. And we just gush for 55 minutes and then spend 5 minutes making an ask. And we're not even tuned into what God is doing in the life of that giver, what they care about, what they're passionate about, what they're looking to accomplish, how they feel like they want to steward their money, right? We need to start by listening and understanding the heart of givers and then putting the right opportunities in front of them. And when you begin to do that, talk about really doing something that they want to do, right? That's when we see resources and a lot of excitement connected
Yeah.
with a giving opportunity or with a specific organization.
Yes, I 100% agree. And that's absolutely it. It's like it's just to me I always find that it's like how do I find the right fit?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I when you think about every nonprofit that's out there, the number of services, the number of resources, like there's a laundry list of ways, especially if they're older than, 10 years old.
Yeah.
They're like, we do this and we do that and we do this and we do that. And it's like nobody's got time to like or the ability to
Hmm.
process
That's
all
right.
of the great work that you do.
Yep.
So it's easier if you just ask a question like, what gets you fired up? What are you
Yep.
most passionate about right
100%.
now?
Yep.
And then you can say, okay, you're passionate about orphans. You're passionate about feeding the
Hmm.
hungry. Great. Here's some programs that we offer that
Yep.
support that instead of you trying to vomit all the information on them and then them
Exactly.
have to weed through it. It's like if they answer one question, you can just come back and be like, oh, yeah, here's some areas of our ministry that you might actually be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all that, right, back to the original question, is a ministry, right, to the givers and the people who are looking for the right opportunities so that they can help move the kingdom forward.
Yep.
So, yeah, I love that. Okay, so how about this though? Certainly, and we just started getting into it, right? Handling donor relationships well is very important. We need to handle those well in a God honoring way. So this is my question. It's a little bit of a backwards question. Um, what are some mistakes that you see out there when it comes to cultivating relationships and handling individual givers and donors?
Yeah. I would say the number one mistake, the number one
This is
mistake,
going to be a good
mistake.
one.
Uh, we live in such a me culture.
Mhm.
Me. Like
Mhm.
we're naturally, we're all kind of self-centered. This is why scripture tells us that we need to love God and love others like we love
Yeah.
ourselves, because we
Mhm.
really do kind of like ourselves a lot, even though sometimes we're hard on ourselves.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
this me culture, like this always talking about me. This is where I find the mistake coming in, is when you're asking or you're inviting somebody to be a part of something,
Mhm.
whether that's email communication, whether that's posting on social media, sending somebody a private message on a social media platform, a text, a phone call, whatever it is. It's so easy to talk about, I need your help.
Mhm.
We are doing all these incredible things, and like it's just all about
Yeah.
us the whole
Yeah.
time. And if you
Mhm.
can just flip the script and talk about them, you get to be a part
Mhm.
of this incredible work that we're doing.
Mhm.
You are the catalyst to change and to transformation. It's like, getting the words YOU in as much
Mhm.
as possible, and any of your communication will absolutely shift the way that you're doing that donor relationship. Because in actuality, I don't give to ministries, I don't give to nonprofits, I don't give to missionaries or whoever it is, because of them. I mean, or,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
the
Sure.
person,
Yep.
yes, I like that person and that
Mhm.
ultimately I have a connection to
Yeah.
them. Yes.
Sure.
But I'm giving because of the person who's receiving the end results, and that
Mhm.
I get to be a part of this bigger story.
Yes.
I got one of my current clients. She, I just like, I absolutely adore her because she's such a good listener. She's so coachable. She's so teachable, right? And so she sends out these emails, and the email that actually came out this morning was about them baptizing 4 people.
Mm.
Great, right? Like amazing when that happens. But that baptisms don't happen every single day. Okay.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
this is like, hey, we just got back from this, this event, and 4 people made a decision to follow Christ. And, here's their stories. But the whole time I can only hear in her emails how I am a part of that,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
that my investment in
Right.
this ministry has allowed for this discipleship process to happen, and this is 2 years in the making, right? Like this person was a student who started asking questions, who then was discipled by another student leader, who was discipled by the leader of
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
organization, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like
Yeah.
this journey, and I know that it's not going to happen overnight, but it was just the thing that she did really well was she just made me feel like
Yeah.
we are doing this together. And not,
Yeah.
I think that you've seen these messages that have come in where people will say stuff like, because of you, we couldn't do it without you. And I know that we all use that language because it's
Mhm.
important and we need to say it. But there are times where it feels very cold and
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
we couldn't do it without you. And it's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that it's the storytelling and it's the voice and your character that comes out in those messages. So
Yeah.
I just want to encourage everybody, when you're sending out an email or you're sending anything else out, don't send it from the nonprofit, send it from a human,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
I want to get an email from Jonathan,
Yeah.
not from Venture 19.
Yep. Yep.
And not to say that it's not Jonathan
No, I
from
understand.
Venture 19, but it's
Yep.
like, but I know when I'm reading an email, Jonathan is telling me a story and
Yep.
he's engaging me into into what is happening. So it's the
Yeah.
I's and the U's. That's what, like, the mistake is less I's, like
Yep.
get rid of the I and start saying more of the YOU's. That's
Yep.
my message there.
Yeah, I love that. And again, right, sometimes, as you said, when we're so focused on ourselves and our work, if we're not careful, we put the vibe out there from a fundraising standpoint where it comes across as, hey, will you give us some of your money and we'll take that and then we'll go do what God's called us to do. And if we have time, we'll circle back and let you know how it's going.
Yep. That's
Right.
exactly it.
And
Yep.
the result is the giver has less, you have more, and you're heading down the road, right, to do what you feel like is the right thing. And it's leaving the giver behind.
Yeah.
It's not, right, truly inviting them to come in and be a part of everything that God's doing, and language is a huge part of that. But I would say this: I know you. I'm sure you'll agree with this. The language has to be a reflection of how you feel sincerely, right? You're
Yeah.
not just saying that, you believe that, because
Mhm.
that's really true. That's what it is. You're
Yeah.
doing something together, you're accomplishing something together, and it takes that partnership. The
Yeah.
other thing that you said was uh right, you just talked about them reporting on the baptisms.
Yeah.
I think weirdly, so many people in the fundraising world, they communicate why they're trying to raise money, but then they leave out just what I call the last 10% of the message. So they share 90% of it. This is, we're trying to raise X amount of dollars by such and such a date, all that kind of stuff. But they never share the last 10% of, and this is what the result of that is going to be. This is
Mhm.
why we're raising the money. This money is going to turn into XYZ programming that we believe is going to turn into XYZ stories, transformation, baptisms, whatever it is. But for some reason, we leave that last 10% out. I don't know if you see that in your world or not.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's just because life gets busy. Like you're doing work, you're head down, and you're like, oh shoot, I need to go tell our donors that we did something good. And it's
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
kind of just feels like an afterthought. And if you're in a ministry or you're in an organization where you're like a full-time fundraiser, it's great because your focus is on the
Mhm.
donor. Like you can give 100% of
Yeah.
your attention on the donor. If you're running an organization where you are also responsible for the mission side, there is a tendency to put a lot of
Sure.
energy on the mission side and be like, oh shoot, the donor relations is kind of like an afterthought and we should do that too. So
That's right.
I just would encourage everybody to just have some sort of automation,
Hmm.
where it's like, what is the journey that we're taking our donors on? And so that it's like, hey, if we email every week, we email every week. If we email every two,
Yeah.
whatever, but we know that it's on this day, it's on the
Hmm.
calendar, that
Hmm.
we know that this is how we communicate with our donor base and how we engage them and what's happening.
Yeah, I love that. We talk out here about developing even a 12-month communications
Yeah.
calendar, right? Not just with your volunteers and people who are engaged in the actual work, but what does that look like from a donor and a giver standpoint? And of course, we talk about prioritizing that report on impact back to givers and making sure that people understand how their money is being used and how God is using it. And I don't know why, Mary, but I feel like a lot of leaders don't understand that that is fundraising work, right? Because if we're reporting on impact and making sure that givers understand what God is doing through their investment and different things like that, right? We're keeping them in the loop, but we're also cultivating hopefully a longer term relationship, right? And we're sort of re-raising that money, right,
Yeah.
for the following year. I say to groups out here, guys, I don't know. Does anyone have a donor that signed a lifetime contract with you? And nobody says yes. I say, well, then I don't understand how you can think about not going back to givers and honoring their gifts and reporting on impact and sharing about what God's doing. They need to know that, and they need to know that for sure, because they're going to make decisions on whether this is the right cause that they're going to continue to give to.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have to remind ourselves that we don't need money just to make money.
That's right.
Like that.
That's right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's great to have a whole bunch of money in the bank account and to be sitting there, but the whole purpose of needing the money is so that you can spend the money on
Exactly.
the results, right? To make
Yes.
that happen. So when you set goals and when you're, creating these budgets of like, hey, what's it going to actually cost to create impact? Well, those dollars should be connected right
That's
to
right.
the
That's
impact
right.
dollars. So then it's like we wouldn't even be asking for this money if we weren't actually
Exactly.
transforming lives and
Right.
creating change. So the way that I incorporate that, I told you I came up through the American Cancer Society, and they're a heavy volunteer-led
Mhm.
organization. You mentioned stats from Neon One and those others. Like
Yeah.
the stat that I love is that if you actually have somebody who volunteers for your organization, they're twice as likely to give.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm like, how do I get them engaged as a
That's
volunteer?
right. Yep.
And then every time those volunteers gather, the first thing we do when we welcome everybody in is mission moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we always have the, like, we're not here just because we like to hang out together. Like
Exactly.
we're here
Yep.
for the mission. So the mission is always leading the meetings. So that's just some way to incorporate, like, it's like, hey, it's just automated again. It's a part of our, program, the way that we run meetings and the way that we engage people is, hey, the only reason why we're gathered here is because we got work to do. We got
Yeah,
big goals to
absolutely.
accomplish.
That's
We're
right.
we're here to make a difference, so yep, that's where I
Yeah, yeah,
focus.
absolutely. We say to groups in our community, you've got to have next steps for people, right? From an engagement standpoint that aren't just write you a check or send you some money. If that's the only step you have connected with your organization, you're not going to build a very strong community. So how do you get people engaged? How do you identify areas of engagement connected with your organization and invite people to be a part of that? And when they do, right, that's when a lot of ownership happens. Resources tend to follow that commitment, like you just said, and we see a lot of great things happen.
Yeah,
So,
for
yeah,
sure. Some
I
people like to
love
lead
that.
with their time. Some people like to lead with
That's
their
right.
money, but usually
Exactly.
they give their money, their time follows. They give
That's
their
right.
time,
That's right.
the whole thing. It all comes in collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. You wrote a book called Fundraising Freedom. Tell us what those 7 steps are. And then I would love to ask you, is there one step that you feel like leaders struggle with the most?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a little
So good.
plug for the
Thank you.
book first.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, yes, several years ago, my book, Fundraising Freedom, was all about this word freedom. And it moved into, I have a book that came out last year called Fully Funded. Same process. Freedom is ultimately what it comes back to. The word freedom means to act, think, and speak without holding back. So for every nonprofit leader, I want you to run your mission without having to, hold back on anything. Like a
Yeah.
donor can't control your mission and vision. That's not, you have the freedom to actually fulfill whatever it is that you were put here to do. And so those steps spell out, it's an acronym for freedom. And the first step is focus your vision. That's just all about having a clear goal. What are we here? What
Yep.
are we doing? How much are we trying to raise? Get that number really clear. Put it in the GPS, right? Like we know the destination. Run your research is all about what's working right now. What are we seeing working with other people? How do we see our allies, our competition, ourselves? Are we presenting ourselves well? All those sorts of things. That's run your research. Enlist your team is all about bringing other people alongside your ministry, your work, so that you have volunteers and you have other people
Mhm.
advocating on your behalf. Then we have the second E of freedom. Enhance your brand. And branding, this is all about just slapping a nice coat of paint on all. I mean, like, I want to make sure that the way that we present ourselves is the way that people are seeing us. And branding, by the way, is what other people say about you.
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
about what you say, because you could say, we're great, we're making a difference, da, da, da. And
That's
it's
right.
like, that's not what other people are seeing. They're like, you're a hot mess and you look
Yep.
like you guys are a mom and pop shop that's just making
Yeah.
do, like,
Yep.
and so we need to make sure that whatever we're putting out there, they're actually picking up. So that's enhance your brand. The D is deploy your team. And that just means actually allowing your volunteers to go out on your behalf, like you're deploying them out into the world on your behalf. Organize your ask. That's actually going and asking for money. I
Mhm.
tell people there are 7 steps. Asking is step number 6. Okay.
Yep.
There's a lot of prep work to get to the ask. So,
Yep.
like, we've already identified the whole process before they even get to making the ask in step 6. And then 7 is making your difference. So, that M of freedom. And that's just all about, like, we do what we said we were going to do. We're good stewards. We thank
Yeah.
our donors. We know our donors. So, like, M is just all about that donor
Mhm.
development.
Mhm.
But the step out of all those 7 steps, the one that is, I think, the hardest, and one that leaders struggle with the most is actually enlist your team.
Mm.
And this is really interesting to me. And I'm going to have a caveat here that it's actually a lot of Christians, like the Christian leaders that I work with, have a difficult time with the enlist your team. And I do think that this comes from, we don't want to burden other people. We don't want to, if we can get it done ourselves, we're just
Mhm.
going to hunker down and go do it. And we're going to sacrifice and we're going to be
Yeah.
humble. And no,
Yeah.
no, 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 we don't need your help. We got it. It's
Right.
fine. And I'm just like, no, you're like hindering them from God's
That's right.
blessing.
That's
Like
right.
you're holding them from getting this great gift of seeing and being a part of something bigger than themselves. So enlist your team, though, is especially for those maybe who have worked in the missionary space or had to raise their own support, asking other people to fund a mission that is yours. Or for actually, this is really big for people who are founders of their own organizations, is that it's like, this is my baby. And this is, my name is on this, or
Yes.
I'm asking somebody to fund my salary or to cover my expenses that, for my family or whatever else. And I'm like, okay, we need to like just set that aside. And I even had to do this when I wrote my book, my first book, Fundraising Freedom, because I was like, this is great, but this is not about Mary Valloni. This is about a message that I want to get out into the world. So I had to almost disconnect a little bit from this thing. So if
Yeah.
you have such ownership of your nonprofit where you're like, this is my baby, I eat, sleep, and breathe this, you got to take a moment and say, this is not my baby. This is God's baby. This is his vision. This is his, like his thing
That's
that
right.
he's allowing me to be a part of, allowing you to lead, which
Yeah.
is incredible. What a gift that is, that you were called up to lead this organization. But we need each other. Two are better than one. A
Yeah.
cord of three strands is not easily broken, right? Like,
Yeah.
like we need each other. So if you think you can do it by yourself, you are going to be burnt out, exhausted, tired. Your relationships are in your family are going to suffer. I mean, like
That's right.
it is not healthy. It is not okay. So I'm just going to encourage you, just like the church, if you want the kids ministry to grow, you got to get a leader to run the kids ministry. If you want women's ministry to grow, I need a strong woman who's going to lead that
Yeah.
women's ministry, vice versa. So in nonprofit work, I'm like, if you want your mission to grow, we're going to have a strong leader on the program side. If you want your fundraising to grow, we need a strong leader who's going to
Yeah.
lead that fundraising. You want monthly gifts to grow? I need a leader who's going to
Right.
focus in on monthly giving. You want major gifts or capital campaign? I need a strong leader. I hope you're catching all that, but it's like,
Yeah.
and we're not saying you're going to hand everything over to them. It's the fact that it's like they're going to put their glasses, their lenses are going to focus in on one thing. And when you're running an organization, your eyes are on everything because we need you as the leader to look at all the moving pieces.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's get somebody who can just look at whatever area it is that you want to focus in on. And when we're talking about fundraising, that's usually like events or major gifts or capital campaigns. You've got
Yeah.
all those things, but that's why I just want to encourage you guys, like committees, team building. Like I'm all about that. If I want to grow anything, I'm building a team.
Yeah. And of course, right, that's one of the things we're called to do is to raise up other leaders, right?
Yes.
And empower and equip others around us. And I circle all the way back to one of the things you started with was talking about people's giftings,
Yeah.
right? There's not one leader that has a gifting for everything. And so if you're not willing to build teams around you and everything depends on you as a leader, all that's going to be limited to your giftings, your strengths. Your weaknesses are also going to be in there as well. And the whole
Yep.
thing can only go so far. Right?
Exactly. This is
So,
where you hit that ceiling where if you keep like, hey, I've raised this much amount of money and that's great. But if you keep hitting the ceiling, there's a good chance that you've met your capacity and it's time to start looking at expansion and who
Yeah.
else can you bring onto your team to help you grow in that area.
yeah, absolutely. How about this question? What are some of the keys in your mind to building long-term organizational sustainability?
When it comes to sustainability, I just want to highlight the fact that I really think it comes down to mindset. That if you are kind of like fly by the seat of your pants, like, hey, I'm just going to put out whatever fire's sitting in front of me and that's
Yeah.
what's going to get my attention, you're going to be living that way forever. Okay. So usually when I get a hold of somebody and I'm like, okay, do you actually want this thing to live past you? Because that's a different story because now we're going to start having conversations about sustainability. Because if
Yeah.
you're like, hey, this is fun and I just like helping people. And if I do it for a year and we have money,
Right.
great. Well, and some organizations do function like that where they're just like, hey, this is fun. And I like helping people. And if people are going to give, I'm going to give the money away. Great. But I would say majority of the people that you work with and the people that are listening to this podcast are going to be people who are like, hey, I'm kind of in this for the long haul. And I didn't build this so that it could burn down next year.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's start thinking more in advance. During my years back, my history at the American Cancer Society, I worked 18 months out. Okay. So I was always working 18 months out. I was always planning. I had like a 6-month window in between this year and next year where I was kind of like, hey, these are the years where I'm like preparing for the next one.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so if you're always kind of in that 18-month set, you're never behind. Because I'm like, I'm planning for something that's 18 months away. So I'm not in my 12-month, fiscal calendar. I'm way like I have plenty of room for life to happen,
Right.
for expenses to come in, and we're not, in the hole. But a lot of times when people get started, they just are going week by week, month by month, and they're just like, oh, I don't. So I just want to encourage people, if you are just getting started, give yourself an on-ramp,
Hmm. Hmm.
to where it's like, hey, we're not making big announcements. We're not, like there's not a ton of expectations. It's like we're working
Yeah.
far enough out to where we have a calendar. We know how much money it's going to take us to run this organization and, to run our programs and services, so that we're not behind all the time.
Hmm.
So I just know when somebody gets on a call with me, I can just feel the heavy. I was like, okay, you needed money yesterday. Is that what
Right.
I hear? You needed money
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is something that you can just like actually like take a deep breath and
Yeah.
say, I don't need it yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're here, you're breathing, you're provided for. Somehow like things are working right now as you're listening to this episode. Like things are
Yeah.
actually functioning right now. And I know you wanted it yesterday, but that kind of behavior is actually what turns donors away. If
Hmm.
I know that
Hmm.
you already spent my money, I'm not excited about giving,
Yeah.
because you're not dreaming about the future. You're just trying to fix the past,
Hmm. That's right. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
that's just not a very, like, that doesn't feel good it doesn't feel good to you. It doesn't feel good to
Right.
them. And it's like, it just feels very desperate. So just take a pause and actually just, I mean, it doesn't cost anything to start like actually planning
Yes.
further out in advance. And then that way you're thinking about bigger dollars instead of smaller dollars. You're not
Yeah.
thinking about $50 a month. You're thinking about $10,000. We're talking about 25,000,
Hmm.
like some bigger gifts. Give yourself some room to breathe.
Hmm.
And this is where, for many who do work off of monthly donations,
Yeah.
it's like, it just feels like you're never hitting your goals.
Hmm. Hmm.
It just is like, it's never good enough. You can never. And so that's why I'm like, you do know that you could get a lump sum of money and then divide that out, So like
Right.
if somebody gave you 10,000 and that covers 2 months, okay, that gives us 2 months of breathing room.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 months to get the next, 10,000, or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
or start, bringing in the $50 a month. But I think the main thing is you got to start looking a little bit further out. This is where you're just going to have to level up,
Hmm. Hmm.
to start to move into that sustainable season.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Last question. And it is a little bit of a personal one, but then I'll ask you to just sort of apply it to whoever's listening. So, is there something that God has taught you recently about fundraising that has meant a lot to you? And would you be willing to share that with our audience today?
Yeah, just like something that I mean, I've been fundraising for over 2 decades, and there's like, times where people just kind of assume that you know what's going to happen. A plus B equals C. We're going to do da 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 da. And I just want, like, God has been just continuously showing me this, and I feel it every single time. I'm like, I don't know what miraculous thing God's going to do. I have no idea. And you know what? We're going to do all these things, and then like he may or may not drop $10,000 in your bank account. Like
Right, 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 right.
I don't know. Like but here's what's crazy is that I have heard story after story of like, hey, I was going to go buy something on Facebook, and then the lady turned around, gave me everything that I wanted, that I was just going to go meet with her about buying the stuff. And then she just gave it all to me.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, by the way, I have a boat I'm selling, and I'm going to give you $5,000. And it's like, what? Like it just
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. I can't say like, hey, you're like what you should do is you should go reach out to somebody on Facebook and see if
Yeah.
they'll give you
Yeah.
all that stuff for free. That doesn't happen. Like that woman, her husband had just passed away, and like, this was the last item. It was the things that were so personal to her and to him. And now it's like, this was like a gift that God had like placed this person in her path.
Hmm.
And she's like, I feel like God's telling me to do this. And that to me, I continue and this is why I love working with people of faith, is because I was like, I don't know how God's going to deliver all this money into your bank
Hmm.
account.
Hmm.
But all I know is that if he gave you vision for it, he will bring
Yes.
the provision.
Yes.
And he may or may not do it in the time frame that you think it's going to
That's
happen
right.
in.
Yep.
It could be
Absolutely.
super, super fast.
Yeah.
Like you got to raise $3 million and it happens in a very short period of time. Or you've got $10,000 to raise and it's going to take forever.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
it doesn't rationally make sense. You and I know the strategies. We know human behavior, but we don't know the God element.
That's right.
And in all my years, I still don't have the God element figured out.
That's right.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't want to have it figured out,
No,
right?
that's the fun.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
fun where I'm just like, ooh, who are you going to meet? And we're just going to get ready. We're going to do all the things to get ready. And then we're just going to let God do what God does. So
That's right.
Many times my prayers for people are just like, God, we just pray that you are speaking to somebody wherever they're at. Because I've heard like, God gave me a number and then you said the number and they're like, that's the number that God gave me. How did you know that that was the number? I was like, I didn't. I just put the number on a sheet of paper, So anyway, so those are the things that I just love about this industry and just the work that we get to do is just that lesson is just don't hold too tightly to your own personal expectations. Sometimes we're like, God said it was going to happen at this date. And I'm like, yeah, did he?
Right.
Your date? You want it done by December 31st.
Exactly.
Is that what God said?
Exactly.
We just have to reevaluate.
Yeah. I love getting to the month of December and looking back and seeing all the things that God did from a fundraising standpoint throughout the course of the year that you could have never imagined, that you couldn't plan for, that you couldn't strategize for. And it's one of my favorite things to do is just reflect back on the year and, to your point, see all the different ways that God provided in ways that were not even remotely a part of your plan or even on your radar.
Right.
And you just right. Absolutely. And I love not just that God provided, but it's just also a reminder that God's with us, right? God knows where we are, what we're doing. Venture 1.9 is based on Joshua 1.9, and we just always say you can go get great things done, not because of your gifts or skills or abilities, but because God says he's going to be with you. Right. That's really why we can accomplish anything. Yeah. And so, I love that. I think that we never want to try to figure the God part of it out because, like you said, it's so much fun. And I think that's the right word. It's so much fun to see what God does in the fundraising world every year, connected with everything that you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
I love that. Mary, thank you so much for being with us today. So excited to just pick your brain a little bit. Again, if you want to learn more about everything that Mary's doing, go to maryvalloni.com. You should pick up her books. One is Fundraising Freedom. The other is Fully Funded. And you can also find the Fully Funded podcast out there wherever you get your podcasts. So Mary, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm excited to see what your people do this year.
Awesome. Love it. Let's talk soon.
There you have it, another great session of learning and encouragement from Dr. Jonathan Rowe. Be sure to continue to listen to Fearless Fundraising wherever you find your podcasts. To learn more about the work of Venture 1.9 and everything that's available to your nonprofit, go to venture19.org. You won't believe all the free resources you'll find there. All right, everybody, we'll catch you soon on another episode of Fearless Fundraising.